Should you give up on your goals because you're just not getting anywhere? This was a great question that came into me last week. Someone was asking, when I'm trying so hard and I feel like I have this goal, but I just feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And half the time, I don't know whether to just give up. I don't know whether I'm chasing a goal that's just never going to happen. And I don't know how to tell when to keep going or when to give up. Oh my gosh, this is such a great question. And I want to talk about it in today's episode. Because, I mean, I've been in this situation so many times. And even when I set up United Art Space, when I set up United Art Space, this was on my mind for 3 years, because more than 3 years, in fact, because I set up United Art Space as a physical studio space in the beginning, and I had to close that down. And then I set it up as an online space, and I did not make any money from that for at least 3 years. And I poured my heart and soul into everything that I was doing for 3 long years. And there were many occasions where I thought, how long can I do this for without earning any money from it? Is it going anywhere? And so I had exactly the same dilemmas. And also with my own art as well. You know, for a long time with my own art, I was at a crossroads where I knew I didn't want to be a full-time artist. And that was such a hard thing to admit. After I'd studied art, I was in the studio going down that route with everyone else of selling, and I just thought, this isn't actually what I want. And that was a really hard decision to make of, do I carry on with this, or what does it mean if I don't create art and sell it? But the very act of doing that and creating art and putting it out there led me to set up United Art Space. So that's why I'm a big advocate for making art and getting it out into the world, because you never know where it's going to take you. And, you know, for me, I decided to kind of transition away from being an artist who sells towards an artist that helps other people. And I know 100% that was the best decision for me. And in making that decision, it really came from me just really asking what I wanted out of life. And I wanted freedom, and I didn't want to be in the studio every day anymore. I did at one point, and I was in the studio every day for 7 years, and I was glued to the studio, and no one could get me out of the studio. And in that moment of my life, that was 100% what I wanted. And then there became this point where I didn't want that. I wanted to be flexible. I wanted to be able to work from wherever, and I wanted to interact with people and help people. And so I changed. And so then what I wanted to do changed as well. And so I think that decision didn't come easy at all. But I think what I realized was, it was my why in terms of, I had a break from it and really got in tune with what I want. How do I want to design my own life? And that just didn't fit in. And I think the letting it go came from having something else to focus on. And so I had a comparison then of this or that. And for me, it was go down the full-time artist route, or go down this United Art Space vision of serving people and helping people and growing an arts organization. That was so exciting for me. And so it was all about how I felt. And so in that moment, I had something to compare it to, which made the decision easy about, I'll give up on. And it wasn't about giving up. In fact, it felt like it was at the time. It felt like I had to choose and give up making art for myself and choose this road instead. But now I realize that it wasn't giving up on my art, because art is still really important, and I still make time for my own art making. And so it wasn't about, you know, it being final and that never again. And so one of the things, there's a quote actually from Banksy that says, rather than give up, just take a break. And I love that quote, because when I've gone through parts of United Art Space where I thought, oh gosh, do I still want to do this? And I don't know how to make the decision. What I tend to do, because there's no alternative. So I'm just sat with a decision of, do I want to continue doing this or not? I take a break from it. One of the examples of this was I used to go live every Monday, and I used to go live at 11 o'clock every Monday. And what I found in the end was, as I used to love doing that live session, but for me, I found that after time, it started to become a little bit of a burden. And I used to kind of not panic on a Monday, but Monday mornings started to become, oh God, I've got to like write a script and I've got to go live and I've got to do this. And I've just been away this weekend. I would have been having to get up thinking about the live session that I had to do. And that was starting to take me away from my, my freedom. And also, I think that was it in a nutshell, really. And I kind of wanted to do the podcast, and it made sense for me to turn that into a podcast. And so what I did was I took a break from it from a while. Rather than just give up, I wanted to just step back from it and then see how I felt. And I actually felt freer, and I felt like I got my Mondays back. And I thought, and I can do a podcast. It's not like I'm giving up on it. I can actually do this in a different way. And I 100% miss the interaction with people, but I get that inside my membership because I go live in the membership every week. So for me, it was a case of stepping back, having a break, and then seeing how I feel. And actually, that's been a really good exercise. And I recommend that to lots of people. Just take a break for a while, because sometimes it is a fact that you just need a break. You just need a break. And then after the break, you get all excited about going back to it, or you don't. You dread going back. And that gives you the answer then that I don't want to do this anymore. I guess, and then comes the scary part of, if it's a job or if it's something major, what do I replace that with? That's a whole other podcast episode. But in that, though, it gives you space to then think about what the next step is, because sometimes if it's something that's occupying your time and your thoughts on a big level, sometimes you've got to let it go to create the space to really think about what is the next step. And whilst you're in that, whatever it is that you're doing, you can't see what the next step is. So sometimes you've got to kind of let things go to create the space for new things to come in. And so that's one of them. It's taking a break. The other thing is it's really kind of like getting in touch with your intuition. I take a lot of time to just meditate on things, and I close my eyes and I imagine, like, what is the answer here? And that might not suit you, but that's what I do. And that really helps me sometimes to just get some clarity and answers. And I feel it in here. I'm definitely about intuition and feeling what the answer is. And then the other thing, when I was on a flight last year, there was a lady on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, and I cannot remember her name, but she'd set up it was like a beauty products business. And she gave amazing advice and said, when you are coming up with a new offer, a new product, a new service, one of the things to ask yourself is the so what. Like, so what? Why would people want this? And she uses that in business to make business decisions about whether she's going to go forward with the product. And she really asks herself, this means something to me, but is it going to mean something to other people? And so what? And unless it's got like a really strong message and so what to other people, she doesn't do it, because she knows it's going to be hard work. And so she does things that make sense, that feed into an audience and a who. And so that's one way of approaching it as well. I think for me, going back to the United Art Space story, if I'd have followed that, I probably would have given up that method of so what, because for a long time it felt like so what was, well, no one cares, no one's going to ever buy from me. So for me, that tenacity of keeping going came from my core mission. And I think when you're really, really excited about something and you have that desire to get it out into the world, that's what keeps you going to find the answers of, how am I going to do this? There has to be a way. And that's what kept me going. And I'm so glad, because then after 3 years, it came to fruition. And so I felt at that point like it was a bit of a win-win situation for me, because I absolutely loved what I was doing. And so, yes, I wanted to be paid for it. because I couldn't carry on for much longer without being paid. And I have no idea how I survived those times, to be honest, but I did. I remember sitting with Sharon at one point, and both Sharon and I said, and Sharon is my friend who's a sculptor who was going down a different route of becoming a full-time artist. And we both sat down in her studio, and I remember us saying, you know, if we don't ever get to the money goal that we want, if we never end up making this a full-time living, I just think we're having such a great time, and it's such fulfilling work. I absolutely love what we do. And Sharon was like, I know, it's amazing. And so as much as possible, if you can lean into that fire and that work that you're doing, but still with the vision of, you know, I want to make money from this. But I just think that was a big transition in my feelings towards it all. Was, this is amazing, I love this. And tapping into that gave me the fuel to just keep going. And I really believe that when you keep going with something, you will get there. And it's hard. And you do have to have resilience at many times when you're going along the journey. But when you're really loving it, it doesn't matter, because then it doesn't become about the end point. It becomes about the person you are becoming to get to that end point, and the amazing people you meet along the way, and the amazing things you learn, and the way you grow as a person. And I opened my eyes to so many parts of the world and connecting with people. It changed my view about art and made me less judgmental as a person and more open to creativity as a whole. So like that pursuit, just, it was like a win-win, because I got so much from it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. So a recap is either just take a break and step back, really lean into why and that fire and that passion around what you do. And then another one is the so what exercise, which can be helpful sometimes, even if it's just not making the decision about whether to stop. But so what can sometimes be the answer you need to push what you're doing forwards in a more meaningful way. So it's sometimes a great question to ask just for that. Like, so what? Why should anyone care about what I'm doing? And it might give you some clues into, I need to get this out into the world. People need to see this because it does matter. But if you do feel in that moment like, oh, I don't care, it doesn't matter, I don't matter, lean into that why. So there's my thoughts for this week. Thank you so much. I'll be back next week with some more Motivational Monday. Take care, my friends.